Good evening, this is Atmospheric Alex here, back with another tropical weather update here. This one will be for potential tropical Cyclone 4, which is beginning to develop down here across Cuba, actually south of Cuba now, and we're going to be going over this in today's video about track changes, intensity changes. We'll have all that shortly. But first, I wanted to break down the thumbnail. Why did I make it the way that I made it? Well, like the title says, we have a big westward shift that is now ongoing in the track of PTC 4. As we can see here, originally, this is what all the models have been showing for the longest amount of time, have been showing this developing over Cuba, and then riding over the entire landmass here, basically, and landfalling very close to Tampa. Now, let me put this straight here. According to satellite imagery and recent observation data I've been looking at, along with many other very seasoned tropical weather forecasters, we are now beginning to see the center form way down here, way to the south of Cuba. And what this is going to do is cause a much more western track to unfold here, and could threaten portions more along the Florida panhandle here. As we could see, maybe Apalachicola, Pensacola, those areas in there need to be on high alert. Tallahassee, I'm talking about you as well. Okay, and now here's your current satellite imagery here, provided from cyclonicwx.com. And we can currently see PTC4's structure overall. A lot of convection ongoing up here on its northern side. This is the healthy side of the storm right now. And this was originally believed to be more of an inner core. That has since shifted all the way down here. And I really want you to note something quickly here. We're noticing a lot of rotation here in the storm. Well, it's a tropical system, that's what it does. You could see kind of our rotation here as it moves on through, developing all the way down here. Look at that, to the south of Cuba there. So it is very important, to note this here. This could become a very significant problem here as time continues to move on through. We will definitely be seeing a southern shift in our track here, a southwestern shift, to kind of do something more of this rather than this. So please keep this in mind here, that the models are currently not picking this up, and in order to really make a reliable forecast on the system, you have to use your eyeballs on the observation data. Again, models are struggling right now hardcore, so just keep that in mind. Okay, so with that being said, we're now going to take a look at some of our tropical weather products here, starting off with our sea surface temperatures, and this was initialized yesterday. It does take an entire day for this data to get through, but you can see really hot waters where this system is going here. We're talking between 31, 32, even closer to 33 degrees Celsius. That is really hot, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking about the upper 80s to even low 90s. That is incredible for this time of year. You would even struggle to see that in September. So just to prove my point, we are definitely going to see organization of this thing here. And I want to note where it is currently right now. We're currently seeing sea surface temperatures roughly around 29.5 to almost 30 degrees Celsius, so the mid-80s. This is also very favorable waters out here for intensification. And like I said, if it continues on this track right here, it'll encounter a whole lot of water here, and even going into portions of southwestern Cuba here, we could see temperatures in the upper 80s, and then, it just tracks into this extraordinarily favorable environment here for growth and development of this system. So now I want to take a look at one of the hurricane models here and kind of get a representation of what these temperatures are going to do across the Gulf of Mexico. So as we go through time here, this right here, we're getting into this afternoon, this evening, and I'm just going to push this through. already, eh, wrong initialization. You're not going to see this directly over Cuba. This is incorrect. Even if the mid-level center were to consolidate, it would be more down here scraping the coast. But we all know what I've said before, our lower level center is right down here, unfortunately, and it is right now. And like I said, 30 degrees Celsius waters. This is, kind of ridiculous here if you ask me. And this just continues here. You could picture this thing forming. Honestly, it'd probably be over here at this time. This is just incorrect. Do not trust the models right now. Like I've been saying, very inaccurate. You got to use observation methods, old school methods here to identify these things in real time. But, if this were to come to fruition, you see here 31 degrees Celsius waters here, so very hot waters, upwards into the upper 80s. This is actually suitable, believe it or not, for rapid intensification. There's no guarantee we will see that, but with how warm the waters are, it wouldn't shock me at all. And it encounters this nice pool of even hotter water here, and then it makes landfall, yada yada yada. This is, if you will, your first side of what I would like to call your tropical weather triangle. I'm going to use this analogy so many times this season, so I hope you're ready for it. Next up is your wind shear anomalies. The higher amounts you have, the more disrupted your center will get. And as of now, like I said, we're struggling to get our mid-level center and our low-level center to consolidate into one here. So this wind shear, if there's a lot of it right now, well, it's not going to consolidate too well. And right now, as it stands, we don't really have that much shear to work with, just a little bit. So we don't have that much shear that's working against us. So this system should be able to gradually intensify over these waters here. And again, wrong initialization point. Do not pay attention to this. But you could see, while your values are high, 30 to 35 knots, this is more of your anticyclonic outflow of the system here. You could see branching outwards. This is a very favorable signal here that your system can intensify and thrive in these conditions. But even with this, it still becomes a little bit lopsided here. You are going to have a bit of wind shear that tries to tangle it up, especially here going into Sunday evening along the Gulf Coast. You could see that there. We'll just have to see whether or not that comes to fruition here. It's kind of uncertain, but that is side number 2 of your tropical weather triangle. Now, another product we like to use frequently is your total precipitable water up here. This is how much water is being stored in the atmosphere at a given time. So obviously, the higher these values are, the more water is being stored. Well, let's take a look here. It could also help us identify the structure of the system here. First off, right off the bat, I want to note, it's just a tad bit drier here across Cuba. So already you could tell why the model is not initializing the intensity correctly. It's because it shows it going right over Cuba, which will not happen. Maybe the western tip of Cuba. That's about it, though. You can see it gets its nice moisture plume well established. Here rotates around the system. Deep convection here on your northern side here. And your purples, your lavender colors, your almost white colors, that is some very intense moisture content in your system, which should wrap around and help it intensify. Should, okay? I want you to note that, because you'll start to notice here a moat of dry air. What this is going to do is it's going to isolate your center of circulation and is going to kind of shear or spread your outer core out of the system, which will leave it in a more harsh environment if this occurs. Now, keep in mind, it's still struggling from your land interaction over Cuba. If this doesn't happen as much, your center could get established a lot sooner, and we could be talking about a very serious issue here, and that, no dry air infiltration would occur in that scenario. So we'll continue to monitor everything here. Like I said, this is your third and final side of your tropical weather triangle here as illustrated. Picture this as your triangle. You have, temperatures up here. You have your wind shear down here, and then you have your moisture content over here. So you need all three sides of the triangle here to kind of light up for a properly conducive environment for tropical weather activity, which we kind of see here. We're lacking a little bit on your moisture content here and even your wind shear at the very end, but your temperatures here are a good to go over on this side. So now we're going to take a look at half of your hurricane models here, because the other half of them didn't render properly. The system formed too quickly, and now they're struggling to know what to do at this point. So we're looking at our half of our hurricane models. Get your halves A model here, and we see this thing going all over the place, really. I mean, this doesn't make any sense. Just please take this with a grain of salt. It shows it consolidating off the Florida Keys. No, you will not see this. This is going to go further to the west. We've already drilled this point home. You're having your observational data shifting this further west now, not over the Florida Keys. This run is just completely broken, I guess. I don't know. But you could see it tries to move a little further west. This is still not far enough, but it's better. You can see it tracks here across the far eastern Gulf of Mexico here. I can expect this to make a panhandle landfall up there, and we're going to continue to watch this move through. And it starts to deepen here towards the end of the frame down to 990 millibars, so definitely a tropical storm. And it makes landfall here around in the Big Bend of Florida, the more southern half of Big Bend of Florida. I want to step back, though. Notice these outer bands here that move ashore, and notice these little hooking features on every single one of these individual storms here. This right here is a tornado threat, possibly. This is for Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening, even Sunday night at times. You could see a brief spin-up tornado or two across this area. I'm not expecting an outbreak, but this is 2024. Crazier things have happened, so just please keep that in mind here. Once again, it moves ashore and kind of maintains intensity far inland. You see a lot of your water spout activity off the coast here. And, you know, this could move more into portions of North Carolina here, where you will definitely be seeing a much greater tornado risk here along the coastline. So please, if you're along the Carolina coasts, you need to stay weather aware for water spouts and tornadoes on, well, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday as this thing slows down more. Now let's look at our halves B model. So our initialization is correct. Look at that. We're right down here to south of Cuba. If only it could stay that way, you know, if only these models would stop changing. If only these models would stop changing so much, we would know where this is going. But instead, it puts it right into northern Cuba. I don't know why, but it does. All the way up here. This is not where it's going to be. This is completely wrong here. This does take it pretty close to Tampa with your onshore activity. Big time tornado risk down here that's starting to become realized here. Again, definitely a tornado risk with your bands here as they swirl onshore. And this deepens down to 990 millibars, just like the halves A model shows us. So halves B, halves A in good agreement that they will both be completely wrong, because they will be. This is not initializing correctly at all. But you will see it makes landfall. It does all the same stuff that the other model showed it doing. Tornado activity. You basically get the idea here, onshore here. Before we end off the video, I want to note these areas here north of Tampa, going through Apalachicola, a little further west. These people in here, if you live in here, need to stay aware of the system. I do believe that is where the system will track and could even make landfall. I'm expecting tropical storm conditions, possibly even low-end hurricane conditions. There's definitely more intensification. It's definitely on the table now. Storm surge will be a concern. I'm thinking 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. Big Bend needs to watch out. Tampa Bay really needs to watch out for inland flooding, possibly. And rainfall will be a big concern as well. 6 to 10 inches along the coastline is possible, depending on where this makes landfall. But anyways, that'll do it for this evening's video in this tropical weather update on PTC4. I will see you all very, very soon for yet another update on this system. Goodbye.